The FBI spent a combined 38 years hunting 5 of the most dangerous fugitives in American history. Dexter Morgan could have done it faster. We're going target by target, breaking down each fugitive's vulnerabilities, how Dexter's skill set outperforms federal investigators, and exactly how long each hunt would realistically take based on everything established across 8 seasons and New Blood. Dexter Morgan's skill set makes him uniquely effective at hunting FBI fugitives, potentially more effective than the federal agents themselves. 12 years as Miami Metro's blood spatter analyst gave him direct access to police databases, forensic equipment, and case files. Dokes repeatedly implied Dexter was capable of far more than his credentials suggested, questioning why someone with apparent medical training would settle for forensics work. Beyond the lab, he displays combat skills far beyond standard police training. His methodology is meticulous. M99 to subdue victims, obtained using the alias Patrick Bateman MD, plastic wrap kill rooms leaving no forensic trace, dismembered remains in weighted bags dumped offshore where recovery becomes unlikely. The Code of Harry requires absolute certainty of guilt and that Dexter never gets caught. The 10 most wanted list wouldn't replace the code, it would function as a high confidence starting filter, letting him skip discovery and move straight to verification. These cases carry extensive investigative histories, public documentation, and federal indictment. Evidence Dexter rarely starts with. The overlap between the FBI's selection criteria and Dexter's is almost perfect. Since 1950, 537 fugitives have appeared on the list, 500 captured or located, a 93% success rate, though 31% came from public tips rather than investigative work. These fugitives have already been investigated, charged, and publicly identified, their crimes documented, their patterns established, their faces known. For a hunter who spends weeks researching targets before striking, the FBI has essentially done his homework for him. The only question, how long would each target take? Before we continue, if you're finding this breakdown fascinating, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Having the right tools means nothing if you can't find your target. Some of these fugitives evaded the most sophisticated intelligence apparatus on Earth for decades. Let's see how Dexter would approach the Bureau's most elusive prey. Starting with Target 1, James Earl Ray, the assassin who couldn't stay hidden. James Earl Ray, the assassin of Martin Luther King Jr., would have been one of Dexter's fastest captures due to his predictable behavior patterns and reliance on third parties. Ray escaped from the Missouri State Penitentiary on April 23, 1967, by hiding in a box of bread in the back of a delivery truck. He had assistance from at least one fellow inmate in executing his escape. After assassinating Dr. King on April 4, 1968, Ray fled to Canada, then London, then Lisbon, then back to London, all within 2 months. The FBI investigation became the largest in Bureau history at that time, with thousands of agents pursuing leads. Yet Ray's capture came almost accidentally. He was detained at Heathrow while traveling under false Canadian identities already flagged by authorities. British police subsequently identified Ray's true identity during interrogation. Ray demonstrated several vulnerabilities. He used multiple aliases poorly, relied on family members for assistance after escaping prison, needed to cross international borders, and required external financial support. His brothers, Jerry and John, provided assistance following his escape, making them potential intelligence sources. Ray visited his brother John in the St. Louis area twice shortly after his prison escape. Dexter excels at tracking individuals who need external support systems. Throughout the series, he repeatedly exploited targets' relationships following their routines, monitoring their contacts, waiting for moments of vulnerability. Ray needed money, forged documents, transportation, and eventually airplane tickets. Each transaction left traces. Dexter wouldn't need to deploy thousands of agents across multiple countries. He would focus on Ray's weaknesses, his brother's location in the St. Louis area, his documented interest in immigrating to Rhodesia, his need for false identity documents. He stalked the Trinity Killer across multiple episodes, studying patterns before striking. Once Ray became the subject of the largest manhunt in US history, the same dependencies that eventually exposed him would have made him vulnerable far earlier to a focused hunter. Ray's dependence on external support and his need for travel made him vulnerable to someone willing to wait. The FBI caught Ray in 65 days. Dexter, unburdened by jurisdictional limitations and bureaucratic protocols, could have matched or beaten that timeline, a few weeks at most. Ray was a small-time crook who got lucky with timing and geography. He wasn't built for long-term invasion. Dexter would have recognized that immediately. Target 2, Ted Bundy, when predators become prey. Ted Bundy presents a unique challenge because he himself was an organized, intelligent killer, the first target on this list who had recognized Dexter as a threat. Bundy escaped from custody twice. The first escape came in June of 1977, when he jumped from a second-story courthouse window in Aspen, Colorado. He was recaptured 5 days later. The second escape occurred on New Year's Eve in 1977, when he slipped through an opening in the ceiling of his jail cell. The FBI added Bundy to their 10 most wanted fugitives list on February 10, 1978. Bundy evaded capture for 46 days after his second escape. During this period, he murdered 2 women at a Florida State University sorority house, attacked another FSU student who survived, and killed a 12-year-old girl. His final capture came when a Pensacola police officer pulled him over for driving erratically in a stolen vehicle. Bundy later expressed regret at being captured rather than killed during the arrest. Bundy confided in Special Agent William Hagmeyer of the FBI Behavioral Analysis Unit about his methods. He described sexual assault as fulfilling his need to totally possess his victims. Murder became part of the adventure. He stated that the ultimate possession was, in fact, the taking of the life, and the physical possession of the remains. Bundy represents Dexter's most psychologically complex target. Both men are organized killers who charm their way into victims' trust. Both understand forensic investigation. Both maintain surface-level social relationships to appear normal. The difference is that Dexter operates with a code, while Bundy operated purely on compulsion. Dexter tracked the eye-struck killer, his own brother, by understanding how another killer thinks. With Bundy, Dexter would recognize the compulsion driving him back to crime scenes, back to bodies, back to hunting grounds. Bundy confessed to revisiting victims' bodies for grooming and sexual contact until decomposition made further interaction impossible. This compulsion created patterns. After escaping custody, Bundy traveled by train from Chicago to Ann Arbor, then stole a car and drove to Atlanta, then took a bus to Tallahassee. He rented a room near Florida State University. He later told investigators he initially resolved to find legitimate employment and refrain from criminal activity, knowing he could remain free indefinitely as long as he didn't attract police attention. He couldn't stop himself. His job application at the construction site had to be abandoned when he asked to produce identification. Dexter would position himself in Bundy's hunting ground and wait. Bundy's compulsion to kill young women near universities gave him a geographic profile. His need to return to bodies gave him temporal patterns. His inability to hold legitimate employment kept him mobile and visible. Dexter had killed other serial killers before: the Trinity Killer, the Skinner, the Doomsday Killer. He knows how they think because part of him shares their compulsions. Bundy's compulsions didn't cause his capture alone, but they dramatically narrowed the window in which he could remain invisible. The FBI caught him through a routine traffic stop. Dexter would have caught him through predator instinct. A few weeks, maybe less. Drop a comment below. Who do you think would win in a direct confrontation between Dexter and Bundy? I want to hear your theories. Bundy was dangerous because he understood how to hunt. Dexter is dangerous because he understands how hunters think. That psychological edge would determine the outcome. Target 3. Eric Rudolph, the Survivalist Challenge. Eric Rudolph, the Olympic Park bomber, represents Dexter's most difficult domestic target due to his survival skills and ability to live completely off the grid. Rudolph planted a bomb at the Centennial Olympic Park during the 1996 Summer Olympics, killing 1 spectator and injuring more than 100 others. Over the next 2 years, he placed 3 more bombs, killing a police officer and injuring several others. The FBI placed Rudolph on the 10 most wanted fugitives list on May 5, 1998, and offered a $1 million reward for information leading to his arrest. Rudolph evaded capture for 5 years by living in the Appalachian wilderness of western North Carolina. He survived through foraging, theft, and nighttime supply raids. He had multiple hiding places throughout the Nantahala National Forest, including caves and campsites positioned between trails where searchers were unlikely to look. The FBI scoured the forest with bloodhounds, electronic motion detectors, heat-seeking helicopters, and cameras at listening posts. None of it worked. Rudolph was finally captured on May 31, 2003, when a 21-year-old rookie police officer named Jeff Postal spotted him digging through a trash can behind a grocery store at 3 a.m. The officer who arrested him had no idea he had just captured one of the country's most sought-after fugitives. Rudolph had 55-gallon barrels buried near his campsite, filled with grain, soy, and oats stolen from a granary 4 miles away. He made nighttime raids for supplies and retreated to positions where searchers won't look. Rudolph breaks Dexter's typical hunting pattern. Most of Dexter's targets live in urban environments with routines, relationships, and dependencies that created vulnerabilities. Rudolph eliminated all of those. No family contact, no financial transactions, no communication. Dexter's forensic skills became less relevant in wilderness pursuit. His M99 tranquilizer requires proximity that wilderness terrain makes nearly impossible to achieve. But Dexter can adapt to environments outside of Miami. In New Blood, he operated successfully in Iron Lake, New York, a rural community with harsh winters. He switched his disposal method from ocean dumping to cremation. He adapted his hunting methods to a smaller population. Dexter's best approach would mirror the FBI's eventual success: resource denial. Rudolph was caught because he needed food. Dexter could monitor the supply chains Rudolph depended on: grocery stores, granaries, dumpsters. The wilderness kept Rudolph safe, but it also kept him hungry. Eric Rudolph would be Dexter's longest hunt, potentially several months of observation and positioning. The capture would likely come during a supply run rather than in the wilderness. Rudolph's survival skills prolonged his freedom, but his biological needs created inevitable exposure points. Rudolph survived by disappearing from civilization entirely. Our next target took the opposite approach. He hid in plain sight for 16 years while the FBI searched the wrong continents. And the reason he stayed free for so long? He had someone on the inside. James Whitey Bulger presents a unique problem because his relationships with the FBI itself allowed him to evade capture, a corruption that Dexter's methods could bypass entirely. Bulger ran South Boston's Winter Hill Gang and was wanted for his role in 19 murders. He evaded capture for 16 years after fleeing Boston in December 1994. The reason for his successful escape was simple. FBI agent John Connolly, who came from the same South Boston housing project as Bulger, tipped him off about a pending RICO indictment. Bulger had served as an FBI informant for more than 15 years, providing information about rival Italian mafia operations. In exchange, the FBI overlooked gambling, drugs, and even homicide to protect their source. A $2 million reward was offered for information leading to his capture, second only to Osama bin Laden's reward on the FBI's most wanted list. The FBI received thousands of tips over 16 years. In reality, Bulger never left the country. He lived in a rent-controlled apartment in Santa Monica, California, with his girlfriend Catherine Grieg under the alias Charlie and Carol Gasco. Bulger was captured on June 22, 2011, after the FBI launched a publicity campaign focusing on Grieg rather than Bulger. The campaign highlighted Grieg's cosmetic surgeries and frequent visits to beauty salons. A public tip following the campaign led authorities to the apartment. Agents found more than $800,000 in cash, over 30 firearms, and false identification inside. Bulger's case reveals why Dexter might succeed where the FBI failed for so long: no internal corruption to protect the target. Connolly's relationship with Bulger meant that standard FBI channels couldn't be trusted. Dexter operates entirely outside that system. Dexter would approach Bulger through the associates and loved ones who create exposure. Bulger couldn't abandon Grieg. That relationship anchored him to predictable patterns: beauty salons, dental offices, medical appointments. The FBI eventually caught Bulger by targeting Grieg. Dexter would have recognized that vulnerability from the start. Dexter has operated around organized crime before. He killed Viktor Baskov, a member of the Koshka Brotherhood, a Ukrainian organized crime syndicate. He navigated Miami's criminal underworld without triggering retaliation because he understood how these organizations work. Based on Grieg's established patterns, Dexter could have found Bulger within months. The FBI's inside corruption created blind spots that Dexter doesn't share. Bulger thought he was untouchable because he knew how federal investigations work. He had no defense against a hunter operating completely outside that system. 4 targets down, each one catchable through observation, pattern recognition, and Dexter's willingness to operate outside institutional constraints. But our final target presents something entirely different: a fugitive so protected by geography, politics, and military-grade security that even Dexter's considerable skills hit a hard boundary. Osama bin Laden represents a target that falls completely outside Dexter's operational capabilities, not because of skill limitations, but because of geographic, political, and logistical barriers that no individual can overcome. Bin Laden was added to the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list following the 1998 US Embassy bombings in Africa. After the September 11 attacks, he became the most wanted terrorist in the world. The CIA searched for bin Laden for nearly 10 years before locating him in Abbottabad, Pakistan. The compound where bin Laden hid featured extensive security measures: 12 to 18-foot concrete walls topped with barbed wire, double-entry gates, opaque windows, no internet or telephone communications, and all trash burned rather than collected. He lived there for approximately 5 to 6 years with several wives, children, and supporters. The breakthrough came from tracking his courier, Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti. The CIA rented a home near the compound and conducted surveillance for months. On May 2, 2011, 24 members of SEAL Team 6 arrived by helicopter, breached the compound walls using explosives, and killed bin Laden on the 3rd floor. Bin Laden falls outside the code of Harry for practical rather than ethical reasons. Harry designed the code for a blood spatter analyst operating in Miami, someone who could research targets through police databases, surveil them in familiar and urban environments, and dispose of bodies using established methods. None of that applies to a target hiding in a foreign country behind military-grade security. Dexter has no method for infiltrating Pakistani territory. He has no intelligence network to identify courier patterns. Even if he could reach bin Laden, he has no extraction plan for a hostile foreign country. The code requires certainty of guilt. With bin Laden, the evidence was overwhelming. The 9/11 attacks killed nearly 3,000 people. The code would absolutely permit this kill. The logistics simply don't. Osama bin Laden represents the hard limit of Dexter's capabilities. No timeline exists because the operation falls completely outside his operational parameters. Some targets require nation-state resources that no individual possesses, regardless of skill level. Dexter is a precision instrument designed for a specific purpose. Bin Laden required a sledgehammer that only the US military could wield. Given realistic operational constraints and canonical abilities, Dexter could clear 4 of 5 high-profile FBI most wanted fugitives, with one target falling outside his capabilities entirely. Here are the projected timelines. James Earl Ray would take a few weeks. His family dependence, poor operational security, and predictable movement patterns would get him caught. The FBI caught him in 65 days through accidental detection. Dexter could match or improve that through focused surveillance. Ted Bundy would take a few weeks, possibly less. His compulsive behavior, geographic predictability near universities, and his inability to control his hunting urges would get him caught. The FBI added him to the most wanted list on February 10, 1978, and he was caught February 15, 5 days later, through a routine traffic stop. His composures dramatically narrowed his window of invisibility. Next is Eric Rudolph, which will take several months. His downfall was the needs for supplies and eventual exposure during resource acquisition. The FBI searched for 5 years. Dexter's focused approach and lack of bureaucratic constraints could reduce that substantially. Whitey Bulger would take a few months. The romantic attachment to Catherine Gregg and predictable lifestyle patterns would be his downfall. The FBI searched for 16 years while compromised from within. Dexter's independence from that corrupted system eliminates Bulger's primary advantage. And as we mentioned for Osama bin Laden, there is no viable timeline. Geographic, political, and logistical barriers exceed individual operational capacity regardless of skill level. The combined timeline for achievable targets ranges from approximately 20 to 30 months under optimal conditions. This assumes Dexter pursues targets sequentially rather than simultaneously, consistent with his established methodology of focusing completely on one target before moving to the next. Dexter can sustain extended hunts. The Trinity Killer investigation spanned an entire season. The Bay Harbor Butcher investigation required him to manipulate evidence and redirect attention for months. His willingness to wait is not a weakness. It is a defining characteristic that separates him from disorganized killers who make impulsive mistakes. Each target on this list was eventually captured or killed. Ray was detained under flagged aliases. Bundy was caught through a traffic violation. Rudolph was caught during a supply run. Bulger was caught through a public tip about his girlfriend. Bin Laden was caught through a decade of intelligence work culminating in a military operation. Every fugitive eventually creates an opening. Dexter's edge comes from exploiting those openings faster than bureaucracies built around procedure rather than speed. This isn't a head-to-head comparison between Dexter and the FBI. His effectiveness comes from singular focus, not scale. Based on the documented vulnerabilities and historical capture circumstances examined here, Dexter could realistically clear 4 to 5 targets with a combined timeline measured in a couple years rather than the decades some of these manhunts actually required. The one target beyond his reach, bin Laden, represents not a failure of the code, but an acknowledgement of operational scope. Harry designed Dexter to hunt criminals who slipped through the American justice system. International terrorists hiding behind foreign governments require different solutions. From a methodical hunter using forensic expertise to a one-man justice system capable of clearing the FBI's most dangerous list, Dexter Morgan's skills translate directly to fugitive hunting at the highest levels, with realistic limitations only at the point where individual capacity meets nation-state requirements. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, and check out our previous video breaking down how long would it take Interpol to catch Dexter.